other premises, like what?
When I select a story, I can only go by my own instincts. I personally cannot calculate and figure out who would like what and who would dislike what. But naturally, as I live among people, among the same people who make up finally the audiences, and am in contact with them, I'm influenced by it. I'm part of the audience, so to speak, so that my instincts hopefully have a connection with the public, and it all works out together. But it is all much more instinctive than intellectual, or it's not something that I can figure out. I think that one of the great joys of making a film or creating anything is that you entertain people in the sense that you stimulate their thinking, not only their laughter and their tears, and that you give them joy, because this thinking process that you stimulate makes them create for themselves an experience. And if you create a vicious experience, and a vicious man, a bad experience, it's also fun. Critics go, certainly I have thoughts about critics, not only in films, but in any, in the theater, in paintings, music. Basically, a critic is not the worry of the picture maker. I can't sit down and worry. I must tell you frankly that when the reviews come out, I look at them more or less for commercial reasons. Are they good, are they bad? And even that doesn't matter, because in a mass communication medium like films, it doesn't matter. The people know soon, or almost from the beginning, instinctively what they want to see, and by word of mouth. So the critic's power is not very big. On the other hand, I cannot tell you anything about my own film. The film has to speak for itself, with all its faults and its virtues. You ought to give an interview, you and your friends, and discuss it. What can I tell you about the film? I mean, my medium is filmmaking. Whatever I wanted to say with the film, I tried to say with this film like with any other film. And whether I succeeded or not, and whether... See, there too, it would be wrong to tell me, for me to tell you what to think. I can only stimulate your thoughts about this theme, about these characters, about... then you must do the thinking yourself and enjoy it. It is not easy. I read a lot of plays, and maybe because I'm not active on Broadway, too active anymore. I've done a play, I think, since 1960, and it's almost 10 years. Terrible. That was Critics' Choice with Henry Fonda. Maybe, I don't know if it was that long. Anyway, people don't send me enough plays. If you write a good play, send me. To remember, certainly, I mean, maybe not the whole scene was accidental, but development of the scene are often accidental. Or could be accidental. They are quite often. But they grow out of working with an actor, particularly humorous scenes, like situation where Coco in Such Good Friends takes off his girdle, his corset. I mean, the way this worked, we made only 2 takes, but in the second take seemed so ideal, because this thing flew away and came back and I left it in because you probably couldn't imagine that it would work just like this.
Does the pain move down from the right side or to the left? Julie, would you do okay, excuse me, Mrs. Reiner. It was my child, Julie. Could you hold on? I just want her to see if her mother's coming. Just a minute.
But I explained before, I can't say what the particular interest. It doesn't work like this. It is not mathematics. It's at a certain time, a certain manuscript is submitted to me, or I read a book, or somebody tells me a story, and it just, because of the timing and that particular occasion, makes me feel I want to make a film of it. It is really partly accidental, and partly, I think, conditioned by my position, in at that point of my life. It's hard to express, but I can't tell you ever why I made a certain film. When I made The Man with the Golden Arm that you mentioned before, there was no particular talk about drug addiction or anything. I read that book and I felt that this would be a fascinating theme. I do not sit around and think in terms of history about myself. In fact, as I often said before, when a picture is finished, and I have seen it a few times with an audience, which is an additional exciting, I wouldn't say pleasure, but experience, I detach myself from this film and think only of my next film. Otherwise I couldn't work. It's the only way for me to work. But this is also not an answer that you can, a question that you can answer very directly, because naturally, as you work with actors, particularly the way I work, coming from the theater, I rehearse with actors. I try to get things out of the actor and out of rehearsals. I do make changes. They might not be perceptible, and they are always going with the script, not against the script. But while I have an absolute, definite picture the way I want the film eventually to look and to be and to sound, there is enough room for changes or development within that framework. But it is, again, not all that black and white. I hope that when my work is done and people look back at my film, they will say that there is a certain style that I have developed, or better to say that grew through my film. But I am convinced that the best directed film is a film where the director is not noticed, or the direction is not noticed. And therefore I would never try, what many directors have done, to develop a style by choosing always a certain angle deliberately, and that I think is not style. I think style is something that comes out of the emotions and the thoughts of the director, and out of his personality, and develops by itself, not deliberately. Just like the style of an actor or a painter. If it is done deliberately, it doesn't work. But it's it's also something that I think is a waste of time for me to think about my style, and this is something that other people should not I. Right before, I don't want to be caught or isolated with my past. I want to go on and make new films, do something new, and not imitate myself or brood about what I have done. Do I want to do it over again? It's finished, for better or for worse, and I go on.
Is a decay, but I wouldn't want it any other way. I mean, I like that kind of treatment. I want the director to tell me what to do. Of extras, and it didn't seem to worry Otto too much. Things like that don't, I think he thrives on that. He's terrific with me. He really is. For instance, the undressing scene, which was a very difficult scene to do. It's not easy to have your clothes taken off when you look like me. But when we did the scene, lots of things happened, and he was wonderful about it. The suggestions that he made, interpretation, things that he suggested, were really right on. And absolute silence when he directs. He asks you in a nice way at first, of course, to please be quiet while the scene is being shot. He doesn't like to hear any talking going on. And then, you're dealing with 75 cars, 100.